door during my entire career. I had heard fragmented reports about impossible structures found in regions considered sterile, empty, lifeless. None of them, however, came close to what would begin to emerge before me when I agreed to accompany a scientific team to a remote zone of the Transantarctic Mountains. It was an area that, until recently, had been buried under a layer of ice so thick that any form of life or construction had been deemed impossible. But something had changed. The seismic readings captured over the last few weeks showed a series of rhythmic pulses, almost mathematical, coming from a specific point in the Ferrar Ice Valley. Signals that rose, fell, and recombined as if they had never stopped operating. The moment I saw the pattern, my stomach dropped. I had seen a similar structure before, somewhere else, in submerged caverns in the South Pacific, in polished markings on megalithic ruins that mainstream archaeology insisted were natural. But this one was different, because this one pulsed like a call, almost as if it were waiting for someone. Me. The transport slid over the hardened snow as the wind screamed against the metal braces of the tracked vehicle. The sky was a thick white blanket, and the landscape seemed to swallow any sense of direction. Jensen kept his eyes on the instruments, driving in silence, while I tried to ignore the growing pressure in my chest since we'd left the main base. "You felt it, didn't you?" he finally said, breaking nearly an hour of absolute silence. "Yes." My voice came out weaker than I expected. "The pattern isn't geological." Jensen swallowed hard. "Not metallic either, not organic. It's a sequence." I knew exactly what he meant, but I didn't dare speak the word aloud. Sequences don't occur in nature by accident. Sequences are made. The wind intensified, and for a moment it felt like the vehicle might tip over. But Jensen stayed firm, as if guided by something beyond the GPS. After some time, the terrain began to change. The white snow became thinner, more translucent. There were lines, straight lines. There was no possibility they were natural. Not in Antarctica. Not with that precision. And then the sky opened. The wind stopped, and I saw it. A perfect circle, nearly 150 meters wide, where the ice had simply vanished. At its center, emerging like a blazing scar, stood a dark structure, metallic and stone-like at the same time, as if molded by a technique we cannot reproduce even with modern technology. My first sensation wasn't fear. It was déjà vu. I had seen that kind of material before. Not in Antarctica, but in forbidden inscriptions in Indonesia. Polished cuts in caves in Namibia. Fragments from ruins in northern Canada found so deep in the permafrost that they could not belong to any known era. They always appeared in places where official chronology said civilizations could not have existed. Pre-human zones. Regions marked by eras erased from our collective memory. Almost erased. Because before me now stood something that looked like it had survived directly from the collapse that occurred 12,500 years ago. The last pre-glacial portal. I didn't know how the name surfaced in my mind. It was simply there, as if I were remembering, not discovering. I stepped out of the vehicle with trembling legs. The air around the structure felt warmer, as if something inside it radiated energy. Vapor rose in gentle waves, and the ice around it melted in concentric patterns far too perfect to be natural. I knelt, touched the ground. Vibration, weak but continuous. A sleeping heart. "This isn't inactive," I murmured. Jensen powered down the vehicle and approached quietly with a thermal scanner. His expression drained when he saw the readings. "This thing is functioning," he whispered. After thousands of years, the structure before us stood roughly 7 meters tall. It formed an oval arc, like the frame of a colossal doorway, but the interior wasn't empty. It was filled with a material that looked like stone, yet behaved like liquid frozen in time. A translucent surface that reflected light unevenly, distorting everything behind it. And then there was the glow. A deep blue light pulsing from within, like an organism breathing in long cycles. The rhythm felt familiar, and it shouldn't have. My blood turned cold. "I've seen this pattern before," I whispered. "Where?" Jensen asked, tense. I hesitated, but saying it aloud made it undeniable. "In records that weren't supposed to exist. Pre-glacial symbols found in lake caverns in South America. Forbidden engravings in sites mainstream archaeology refused to acknowledge." The wind howled again, as if Antarctica were trying to bury what we had uncovered. "And what does that mean?" Jensen asked quietly. I didn't answer immediately, because answering meant accepting a truth no one on the planet wanted to face. That a civilization existed here before the Ice Age, and more, that it left something behind, something that did not fall, did not break, did not vanish with the collapse of 12,500 years ago. Something that was waiting. My breathing grew heavy, because for the first time I understood the portal wasn't a ruin, wasn't a relic, wasn't a memory. It was a mechanism, and it was waking up. As I approached, the portal pulsed brighter. The rhythm quickened. Thermal readings spiked abruptly. "It's reacting to you," Jensen said, voice trembling. I stepped back, but it was too late. The vibration increased. The ground shook. And then, for the first time, the portal emitted a sound. Not a roar, not a mechanical groan. A song. Low, deep, mathematical, ancient, and yet familiar, as if I had heard it before, in dreams, in echoes, in memories that weren't mine. And then I realized something that froze my soul. The portal wasn't simply awakening, it was recognizing me, and for a reason I still didn't understand. It was calling me. The song emerging from the portal was unlike anything I had ever heard. It wasn't wind passing through ice fissures, it wasn't tectonic vibration, and it certainly wasn't the hum of modern machinery. It was structured, rhythmic, calculated. More than that, it was intentional. I felt the vibration in my chest, as if the sound traveled through the air, through the suit's fabric, through my flesh, until it reached my bones. It was deep, almost subsonic, resonating slow and powerful. Jensen stepped back instinctively, but I remained still, unable to move away. That frequency seemed to pull me forward, as if finding a response inside me. "Are you hearing this?" I asked, even knowing Jensen wasn't experiencing what I was, just vibration. He pressed the visor, nervous. "But you're pale. What are you feeling?" How could I explain something I didn't fully understand? Because the truth was brutal. The frequency was speaking to me. I looked again at the portal. The surface pulsed with its own life. Waves of blue light intensified, running like veins inside the structure. The dark material that formed the arc wasn't simply stone nor metal. It was something hybrid, a substance both polished and organic, as if it had been grown rather than built. A technology that fit in no category known to modern science. "Jensen," I breathed, "we need to record everything. Every reading, every pulse, every change." He nodded silently and activated the analysis module. The screen reflected on his visor showed complex mathematical patterns, harmonic waves oscillating between frequencies, incompatible with any Earth-based instrument. "This is impossible," he whispered. "The structure is modulating frequencies we only see in simulations of astrophysical events, like fusion, like warp field distortions. This shouldn't exist on Earth." But it did. It was right in front of us. And not only did it exist, it was active. "We're not dealing with ruins," I said. "We're looking at a system." He turned to me, confusion and fear mixing in his eyes. A system of what? I didn't need long to answer. Alignment. The word fell from my mouth without thought. Natural, instinctive, as if I were remembering, not deducing. Jensen's breath hitched. You're telling me this thing aligns. What? Time, space, magnetic fields. Everything, I answered. Or something greater than that, because now I understood something that sent a shiver through every nerve in my body. The portal was a stabilizer, something built to survive, not the cold, not time, but the collapse. The collapse of 12,500 years ago. This date wasn't poetic, it wasn't symbolic, it wasn't guesswork. It came with mathematical precision, embedded in the tonal pattern the portal was broadcasting. And that date matched something few researchers dared mention. The global collapse marking the end of the last pre-glacial era. Some called it the flood. Others, rapid climate destruction event. Others still, the fall of the primordial civilizations. Modern science had always tried to separate myth from fact. But here, before the portal, there was no separation possible. Human history was far older, deeper, and more interrupted than we ever admitted. The portal was living proof. The vibration intensified. The ice around us cracked, not chaotically, but in patterns. Spirals, the same spirals carved in megaliths around the world, Gogli Tepe, Easter Island, the submerged ruins of Yonaguni, the same language, the same culture, the same signature. This is global, Jensen whispered. No, I replied, eyes fixed on the portal. This is pre-global, older than any known civilization. Then the portal changed. The blue light converged at the center, forming a liquid surface. It contracted, expanded, and took shape. Not a physical shape, not a sharp image, but a living geometry. Circles, waves, curved lines woven together like an organism breathing light. The structure was trying to show something. Jensen backed away, terrified. This is impossible. It's an energy projection. This is active technology. This isn't human. This isn't... I know, I interrupted softly. Because at that moment I understood with terrifying clarity the structure was recognizing me the way it recognizes an ancient code. It responded to my presence, my frequency, my memory, or perhaps my lineage. The light expanded. The geometry sharpened. It resembled a map or a sequence or a cross-section of a machine the size of a continent. Caverns, curved chambers, pillars spiraling downward. A central core emitting the same pulse that vibrated now in my bones. The portal wasn't opening, it was inviting. Don't go closer. Jensen shouted behind me, but I already knew. This wasn't curiosity. This wasn't emotion. This wasn't recklessness. It was a return. The portal dimmed for a brief moment, like the pause before a breath, then adjusted its rhythm to match mine. And the final vibration carried a meaning with absolute clarity. The cycle has not ended. My breathing stalled. Because in that moment I realized the collapse of 12,500 years ago was not the end. It was only a pause, and something was beginning again. The portal breathed. It was the only possible way to describe what I was seeing. The bluish surface pulsed in long, organic cycles, as if something within it were awakening, slowly stretching after millennia of absolute silence. The air around me vibrated with a deep-toned resonance, like the distant echo of a trapped thunderstorm. Jensen stayed behind, and for the first time since entering that impossible place, I felt the weight of being truly alone. I had no witnesses. No one to confirm what I saw, no way to prove any of it, and yet everything was undeniably real. The chamber seemed to expand around me. The space wasn't static. It reacted to the presence of the Guardian. Lines of light began to appear on the floor thin, electric filaments running across the dark material, forming geometric shapes that weren't decoration, they were calculations. Algorithms expressed as architecture. The portal wasn't simply a boundary, it was an interface, and now it was online. The luminous figure made its first movement. It did not walk, it did not glide, it did not approach. It simply tilted its head, or the area where a head should be, just slightly toward me. The smallest possible gesture, and it hit me with the emotional weight of an earthquake. My breath locked in my chest. My temperature rose. Every instinct I possessed screamed for me to run, to flee that ancient thing. But layered beneath that primal fear was something even stronger. Recognition. Not mine toward it, but it toward me. The figure glowed brighter. And then I heard, not with my ears, but inside my mind, its third message. The last key has returned. My entire body froze. The last key returned. To what? For whom? Why? The figure extended an arm, or what resembled one, toward the floating map suspended above the chamber's core. The connections within it intensified, spiraling into deeper levels, revealing regions of the structure that had not appeared before. Hidden chambers, lower corridors, whole sectors concealed beneath the ice. The network was vast, coordinated, alive, and the portal was the entry point. Then the core brightened. Another circle of light opened beneath the map, revealing what looked like an entire city buried deep below. Not ruins, not debris, not the remnants of a civilization long gone. It was a system, coherent, connected, intact. It looked alive. Light conduits threaded between towers, chambers, spiraled tunnels, and massive structures whose functions I couldn't even guess. It was so large that no human concept of scale could encompass it. This was never built for humans, or for any species we know. The pillars resembled vertebrae of a colossal organism. The chambers, lungs. The tunnels, nerves. The core, a vast and ancient heart. And the portal, the first point of contact. The figure vibrated again, and the meaning arrived fully formed. What collapsed was not destroyed. My stomach dropped. Not destroyed, only delayed. Interrupted, the figure continued. We slept to survive the cycle. Cycle, collapse. 12,500 years. Everything clicked. Something catastrophic happened on Earth. An event so devastating that the pre-glacial civilization had no choice but to enter forced hibernation. Not extinction. Strategic withdrawal. And now, the portal was awakening because the cycle was returning. The collapse was returning. The lights of the chamber shook. The map flickered, reacting to a disturbance. And the floor shuddered beneath my feet. But it wasn't danger. It was awakening. "What's happening?" I whispered. The figure turned its faceless head again, and the message transmitted with perfect clarity. "The core awakens because you are here." I stepped back involuntarily. Why? Why me? The answer didn't come as sound. It came as a vibration through every bone in my body. "Because your rhythm matches ours." My pulse spiked. Rhythm, frequency, genetic echo, ancestral imprint. I didn't know, and yet I did. Something in me, something buried so deeply I had never felt it before, was synchronizing with the portal's system. I wasn't an intruder. I was a match. I was the key. The core brightened until its light became blinding. The chamber's walls began to rotate, not physically, but in layers of energy shifting like a multidimensional mechanism waking from stasis. The ceiling above displayed constellations I didn't recognize, stars in positions Earth hadn't seen for tens of thousands of years. The figure's final message hit me like a shockwave. The cycle that ended our world is beginning again. My breath stopped. I took a step back, trembling. The portal was not a gate, not a monument, not a tomb. It was a warning system. The first to activate when the cycle began again. And it activated because of me. The Guardian dissolved into particles of light, returning to the core. The map folded back into itself. The floor dimmed. The ceiling darkened. The portal behind me sealed like a living membrane. But before it closed completely, I heard inside my skull a final whisper. Prepare. The world above is not ready, but we are returning. Then the chamber went dark. The vibration faded into a slow, steady heartbeat, and I understood this was not the end. This was the countdown. The blue light rising from the center of the chamber intensified with every passing second. It wasn't just illumination, it was heat, resonance, intention. I felt it in my lungs, in my pulse, in the back of my skull. The chamber was no longer merely active. It was aware. The Guardian had vanished into the core, but its presence lingered like a vibration carved into the air. The walls around me, once static now, rippled with waves of faint light, as if the chamber were a living organism adjusting to my presence, testing boundaries, recalibrating itself. Jensen wasn't there, and the weight of that isolation pressed into me like ice. Whatever happened now, I was alone. The chamber expanded, not physically, but perceptually. The dark material that formed the walls seemed to breathe, contracting and expanding in perfect synchrony with the glowing core. Thin filaments of blue energy raced across the floor, forming highly complex geometric patterns that changed each time I blinked, as if trying to reach a configuration I might understand. They weren't symbols, not in the traditional sense. They were instructions, algorithms written in geometry. The portal was not a door. It was a terminal, a conscious interface between worlds, between epochs, between collapses, and now it was fully online. The floor trembled, and above me the floating map returned brighter, sharper, more complete than before. It no longer showed isolated tunnels or chambers. Now, the entire subterranean system appeared interconnected, woven into a grid that resembled both architecture and anatomy. Every corridor pulsed like a nerve, skeletal like a skeletal support, every chamber like an organ. And the core was unmistakably a heart, not metaphorically, literally. The entire structure behaved like a biological machine, engineered with an intelligence that blurred the line between technology and life. It was older than us, older than the ice, older than the collapse, and still functioning. The Guardian's voice, or its vibration, struck through my mind again. You are connected to the system, connected, not selected, not chosen, connected, as if something within me, something inherited or dormant, matched the rhythm of the portal itself. I swallowed hard. How? I whispered. The answer arrived immediately, vibrating through the chamber. You carry an echo of the first cycle. My knees nearly buckled. The first cycle, not their cycle, not the collapse of 12,500 years ago. A cycle before that, something far older. A shiver crawled across my spine. The map zoomed out, revealing a network so vast it seemed impossible. The subterranean system beneath Antarctica connected to similar nodes across the planet, some active, some dormant, some barely detectable. Points of energy pulsed across continents, in the Pacific, in the Sahara, in South America, deep beneath the Indian Ocean. Every ancient myth, every forbidden ruin, every unexplained megalith, they were not isolated. They were fragments of a global system, buried by catastrophe and time. Tick. The Guardian's next message hit harder than any before. The cycle begins when the core awakens. The chamber vibrated violently. Light surged upward in spirals. The ceiling shifted, revealing constellations that no longer matched the sky above Earth. These were the stars of a different era. The stars of the world before the collapse. A world that wasn't ours. A world they had tried to preserve. The portal's activation wasn't accidental. It wasn't a malfunction. It wasn't a delayed response. It had been triggered. Triggered by me. Because my presence, my rhythm matched something from that ancient world. The floor glowed beneath me. The heat intensified. The chamber's walls curved inward like they were leaning closer, watching, and then the final revelation came. We protected what the sky destroyed. The sky, not the ocean, not the ground, not the climate, the sky. A celestial event, something massive, something catastrophic. A memory flashed through me, not mine, but transferred. A blazing horizon, storms of fire, tides rising like mountains, a sun that flickered, a night sky torn open by streaks of light, a global destruction initiated not by Earth, but by something from above. The Guardian's message completed the image. The collapse will return to its beginning point. Return, not repeat. Return. A cycle is not a straight line. It is a circle. And the portal, the system, the core, they were not built to prevent the destruction. They were built to survive it. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. "What do you want me to do?" I whispered, my voice shaking. The answer arrived in fragments, layered and heavy. Prepare. Remember. Warn. Warn who? Prepare for what? Remember what? Before I could form another question, the chamber's energy shifted abruptly. The light dimmed. Tick. The core sank slowly into the floor as if being reabsorbed. The floating map folded in on itself like collapsing origami. The Guardian's presence faded, and with its fading came its final message. We are returning from the deep cycle. The world above must not repeat our fall. Then the portal behind me opened, or rather, released me. Not gently, not violently, decisively. It pushed me out, as if the system had extracted everything it needed from me. The chamber darkened. The lights retracted. The rhythm quieted. The portal sealed with a final, resonant pulse. Not an ending, a countdown. I stumbled into the cold air outside. The sky had transformed. A shimmering blue aurora stretched across the horizon, mirroring the color of the portal's core. Jensen stood frozen, staring upward in awe and terror. "You saw that, didn't you?" he whispered. "The sky, something's wrong." "No," I answered, trembling. "Something has begun." We turned toward the valley one last time. Cut. The portal glowed faintly beneath the surface, alive, awake, and listening. Not waiting for me anymore. Waiting for the world. When darkness swallowed the chamber, for a moment I thought I had blacked out, but no, my senses were still intact. I still felt the floor beneath my boots, still heard the faint hum of the core somewhere deep below. I simply couldn't see. The darkness was dense, warm, almost tangible, like a living curtain pressing gently against my skin. Then, as if exhaling, the darkness receded. Points of blue light appeared, first tiny floating luminescences drifting like glowing dust. Slowly, the shapes of the chamber returned, the walls curving in impossible, organic arcs. One by one, the features of the structure came back into focus. But something fundamental had changed. The portal was no longer dormant, no longer responding. It was awake. The vibration was different, now steady, calm, deliberate. Not calling, not warning, not analyzing, listening. Something had started. Something that could not be undone. I took a slow step forward. My legs felt heavy, as if I were walking through water. The chamber was quiet now. Not dead quiet, the quiet of preparation, of anticipation, the silence that follows activation. When I reached the passageway, the membrane-like surface opened again, soft and fluid, revealing the tunnel back to the surface. But the sensation of crossing the threshold this time was nothing like entering. It felt heavier, final, as if I were leaving a place that no human was meant to walk away from twice. I stepped out. The portal's glow dimmed behind me as the entrance sealed, layer by layer, like a living organism returning to hibernation. But it wasn't hibernating. It was waiting. The tunnel hummed with residual energy. The walls pulsed faintly, almost grateful, as if the system acknowledged what had occurred. I emerged onto the snow, breath misting in the suddenly colder air, and the world looked wrong. Jensen was kneeling on the ice some distance away, both hands planted in the snow, staring in disbelief at the sky. He shook when he saw me emerge. "You're alive," he whispered, voice cracking. "You were in there too long. I thought you—" He froze mid-sentence, staring upward again. I followed his gaze. The Antarctic sky, gray, flat, lifeless minutes before, was now cut open by streaks of blue aurora, the same color as the portal's core, an impossible blue. Not polar light, not atmospheric plasma, a color that did not exist in any natural spectrum. "The sky changed," he whispered. "It changed when you were down there." "No, not when I was down there. When the core awakened." I inhaled sharply, the cold burning my lungs. The activation wasn't local. It wasn't isolated. It wasn't contained. Earth itself was reacting. We hurried back to our temporary base camp. The equipment had survived the activation, but the readings were catastrophic. Magnetic field fluctuations, atmospheric ionization spikes, thermal signatures beneath the ice rising at impossible rates, microseismic tremors with non-natural rhythm, and the most alarming thing, a repeating pulse, the same one we had detected before coming here. Now 10 times stronger. "It's global," Jensen whispered, scrolling through data with trembling fingers. "This signal, satellites will catch it. Militaries will catch it. Every observatory on the planet is going to see this." He was right. And I knew exactly what that meant. They would come, scientists, governments, corporations. They would try to contain it, study it, control it, and they would fail. The portal was not something to be controlled. It was something to be respected, or feared. "We can't let this fall into the wrong hands," I said. Jensen stared at me like I had spoken a forbidden truth. "You're talking about hiding this from the world." "No," I said softly. "Not hiding. Protecting." He swallowed. "How?" I began organizing our data, splitting files, encrypting sections, preparing fragments to be distributed across institutions that valued truth over power. "Through separation," I said. "No single entity can have the complete picture." "Not yet." Jensen lowered his head. "You saw something down there, didn't you?" I didn't answer, because he already knew, and because there was no way to explain what I had seen, not without breaking him the way the portal had broken me. We finished packing the essential equipment. Every reading, every frequency, every wave pattern the portal had left behind. Outside, the blue aurora still pulsed across the horizon, a living echo of the core buried beneath the ice. As we prepared to leave, I turned back toward the valley. The portal's glow was still there, barely visible beneath the frozen surface, a heartbeat waiting beneath the world. And in that moment a truth struck me so deeply I felt my chest tighten. The portal hadn't awakened to reveal the past. It awakened to warn us of the future. What happened 12,500 years ago, the collapse, the destruction, the extinction level event, wasn't a myth. It was a cycle repeating now, quiver at its beginning. Not by accident, by design. When we boarded the transport vehicle, Jensen glanced at me, fear and trust battling in his eyes. "What do we do now?" I closed my eyes, and the Guardian's final message echoed within me. Clear, solemn, ancient, prepare. Remember, warn. I opened my eyes. "We do the truth," responded. But not all at once. Not until the world is ready. Jensen nodded slowly. He understood. Some truths illuminate, others ignite. And this truth, the return of the cycle, the awakening of the core, the survival of those who came before, was fire. As we drove away, the dark valley faded behind us, but I felt it. Deep in the earth, deep in the cold, deep in myself. The portal was still awake, still listening, still waiting. And it would not be the only one. The cycle had begun. The world above was unprepared. And those who came before, the architects of the pre-glacial age, the ones who survived the fall, were returning.